there, Mr. Premier. How are you? My name's Phil. You probably won't get this message, but just in case you do, I'm going to take a shot at it anyways. Because I have some vital information for you, Mr. Premier. Some information that I find very hard to believe that the health minister, or the federal health minister for that matter, hasn't thought of. And the reason why I say that is because there are several reports on this that have been taking place since March. And of course, what I'm talking about is what I see as a great solution to keeping hospitalizations down in Ontario, really worldwide, but we're just going to talk about Ontario because that's what we can control. You see, I know that you're up at night. I know what's keeping you up at night. You're a businessman. You came from a business family background. And so I know how much sleep you're losing over this decision that you've just gone through to close the economy. But what if I told you that it's not necessary to close the economy because we could keep hospitalizations down? How, you say? I'll tell you right now. Vitamin D.
From regulating immune responses to controlling inflammation, the benefits of vitamin D in COVID-19 patients are strengthening. A study out of Northwestern University in Illinois looked at countries with high COVID mortality rates like Italy, Spain, and the UK. It found on average patients had lower levels of vitamin D in these countries when compared to patients in other areas of the world that were less affected. Another study out of the UK backed up this claim, as it found Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden had higher levels of vitamin D and lower rates of COVID-19.
Vitamin D has been shown to have different roles. Specifically, it has an immunomodulatory role that in one way helps our immune system to fight infections, but at the same time, it also has an anti-inflammatory role. So that means that it actually regulates the immune response so we don't have a state of acute inflammation.
And acute inflammation has been a common theme in severe COVID-19 cases. At this point, researchers know there is a connection between low vitamin D levels and a poor outcome in fighting this virus.
And it's Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and I'm here with another coronavirus update. And you're with your boy, Philly Phil, aka the Prophet, aka Lost Prince of Lebanon, aka King of Philippines. And I'm here at your service with some incredible research that I don't think that you knew, and yet it's everywhere, and yet it's nowhere. Did you like my Christmas tree? 'Tis the season. So, folks, today I have so much research that I just packaged together in one nice little neat little tight little package for you. Okay, I have 2 scientific journals with full studies and graphs. I have 2 governments that are now doing it and sending out 5 million doses, sending it out to 2.5 million people. So that's way more than 5 million pills. And that's in England, okay? So I have 2 governments who are pursuing that. I have 7 credible news reports. I have 3 articles, one where Dr. Fauci himself is recommending vitamin D. I have 57 doctors, and I'm going to lay this all out very quickly and simply for everybody to see. And Mr. Premier, I know that if you see this, you would take it into consideration. At least the message should be given out. Because you see, Mr. Premier, the only message that I'm hearing, and that all Canadians are really hearing, but especially Ontarians, is that it's all our fault. And we need to wash our hands. We need to stay distant. We need to stay at home. We need to just go home, lock up, be scared. I'm not hearing anything about any health information being put forward. I'm not hearing people talking about keeping your immune system strong. Because you see, Mr. Premier, if we keep our immune system strong, then hospitalizations don't happen at all. And then we can keep the economy open. Mr. Premier, I never had a problem with you before. I really didn't. Some people did. I didn't. You know, I'm mostly apolitical, but I didn't have a problem with you. And it's not that I have a problem with you now, but I don't know what the agenda is of the people around you, because by the time I finish presenting this information, I think everybody has to ask the question, why is it not being done? Why is it not being put forward if there's nothing to lose by doing it? There is no adverse effects to taking vitamin D, unless you exceed 10,000 units or 5,000 units per day. So, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into it and roll the clips.
Some intriguing research about a possible link between COVID-19 outcomes and vitamin D, something that most Americans, and especially people of color, are severely lacking. Tonight we bring in Dr. L. Ray Matthews, who studies vitamin D. He's a recently retired trauma surgeon and researcher at Morehouse School of Medicine and Grady Hospital, Atlanta. Thanks so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Now, everyone needs vitamin D, but you say that half the world's population actually has a deficiency. Would we all be healthier and able to heal faster if we took vitamin D supplements?
Yes, we would. Actually, we decrease the hospitalization of our patients, their length of stay about 3 or 4 days on the floors and the ICUs. So our patients heal faster. They had fewer infections, fewer heart attacks, fewer strokes. They got well and came back to clinic, and most of them didn't want any narcotics. And most of them went back to work, and they were actually productive paying members of society instead of relying on public assistance.
And tell us why getting enough vitamin D is a particular concern for African Americans and anyone with darker or browner skin.
Well, dark-skinned people usually have lower vitamin D levels because we have melanin in our skin. And melanin is a natural sunscreen which blocks 98% of vitamin D production. So a dark-skinned person would have to stand outside 3 to 10 times longer in the sun in order to make the same amount of vitamin D. As a result, dark-skinned people tend to have a vitamin D levels 30% lower than the average lighter-skinned person.
So COVID-19, though, in particular, what's your thought as it pertains to vitamin D?
The way COVID works is that what vitamin D does is, like I said, it's a hormone, so it increases your white blood cell count. White blood cells are the things that fight off the bacteria, the viruses, and fungus. For the medical personnel, if you supplement your patients with vitamin D, about 4 or 5 days later, you'll see an increase in their CD4 count, which is a T cell, or another name for white blood cell.
So just some of the early studies that have come out with regard to vitamin D and finding people who are have deficiencies, I guess, in vitamin D, they don't seem to be faring as well with COVID-19. Is that right?
Yes, to lower your vitamin D level, the worse you do. There was a study came out in the Annals of Medicine years ago that showed when your vitamin D level gets less than 18 nanograms per milliliter, that's the amount of vitamin D measured in your blood, your risk of death goes up 30% for all causes, whether it's coronavirus, regular pneumonia, flu, traumatic brain injuries, or gunshot wound victims. So having low vitamin D levels increase your hospital. I wrote a paper saying low vitamin D levels increase the mortality rate, hospital length of stay, and hospital cost.
Dr. Matthews, really fascinating stuff. We thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
New study by researchers at the University of Chicago shows the impact vitamin D can have when it comes to COVID-19.
Joining us now to talk about the findings of the study is Dr. David Meltzer. Thank you so much for joining us. So it appears that a deficiency in vitamin D, there's a connection with COVID. Can you explain?
Sure. What our study did is examine patients tested for COVID at the University of Chicago and try to figure out whether patients who were vitamin D deficient were at increased risk of catching COVID compared to people who were not vitamin D deficient. And the way we approached that was by looking to see whether they were more likely to test positive for COVID when we tested them. And what we discovered was that patients who were vitamin D deficient were about 77% more likely to test positive for COVID than patients who were not vitamin D deficient.
All right, so here we go. This one is from the Endocrine Society. This is the journal, the official study, peer-reviewed. This is my favorite part of every episode when I get to back up my crazy claims with actual data and graphs, get scientific on you. So here we go. This is the this will be in the comments below if anybody wants to get the link to the actual study, and this just shows the results, which were that 80% of the patients who were in the hospital were vitamin D deficient for COVID-19. Here's from Euronews, just talking about the government of England sending out vitamin D to 2.5 million of their residents. Here is another link for that in BBC News, showing you, again, credible source, that this is actually happening. They are doing this. If they can do it, we can too. Here's the Scottish government official website for vitamin D. Okay? Tells you right there. CTV News. This was keeping it local. Yet another article showing that 80% of the patients who were hospitalized due to COVID-19 were there because of a vitamin D deficiency. 80%. Massive number. Okay? Now this one is like my favorite article. All right? Make sure you guys check this out in the comments below. Scientists raise the vitamin D alarm. A group of researchers and doctors have formed an international alliance aiming to encourage governments to basically recommend taking 4,000 international units daily, as they believe this would reduce COVID-19 hospitalizations. I'm not the only crazy one. The group action involves a public awareness campaign, petitions, and calls to MPs. Oh, men after my own heart. Dr. Gareth Davies says the UK government's current recommendations of 400 IU daily of vitamin D is 10 times smaller than what the group believes is necessary during the global pandemic. They believe it should be 4,000 international units daily, and that should be sufficient to ensure healthy immune response. Okay, there's reports of people coming in there with COVID-19, and they give them a huge blob of 10,000 IUs, and then they're good after that. And this is my favorite part right here. For most people, the idea that a simple over-the-counter vitamin can actually help to fight a pandemic is so preposterous. And I think that this is largely due to the fact that it is referred to as a vitamin when it's not. It is an essential hormone which the immune system requires in order to function adequately. Okay, so that's Dr. Davies right there. And here you go, just because I care about you so much. Here are a few places that you can get it naturally. Mushrooms, egg yolks, fatty fish, salmon, sunlight, obviously. Dairy, milk, all you milk haters. Okay, this one's my favorite. Obviously, everybody loves Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci says it's fine. Oh, it's fine to take vitamin C and D to help boost your immune system. So he doesn't want to make people freak out. So he just said, it's fine. You know, he's recommending it, kind of, right? Anyways, when Dr. Fauci says something, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. If you're deficient in vitamin D, that does have an impact on your susceptibility to infection, says Dr. Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. I would not mind recommending it, and I do it myself, taking vitamin D supplements. Oh, he does it himself. But his recommendation stopped there. When Garner asked about spinach, elderberry, and other supplements, he said the answer to the dismay of many is no. Dr. Fauci isn't shooting from the cuff here. There is clear evidence that vitamin D does help fight off respiratory infections. There it is, Dr. Fauci. And just to top it all off, I have another very prestigious journal that gives you all of the graphs that we're going to go through right now about SARS-CoV-2 and vitamin D. Until treatment and vaccine for coronavirus 2019 becomes widely available, other methods of reducing infection rates should be explored. Okay, let's just go down to the meat. Let's get down to the meat and bones of it, laddie. All right, accepted, published, peer-reviewed, everything, all that good stuff, all right? Let's go down to the figures. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first graph, okay? Shows the positivity rate. On the bottom axis, the more vitamin D you get, see that curve right there? Positivity rate goes down. Cases go down. That's the first graph. Let's go to another graph. This one's by geographical location. We have the northern hemisphere, central hemisphere, and southern hemisphere. Oh my God, I need a vacation. More vitamin D. Okay, now let me get my composure together. All right, we have this one's by race, right? So darker skinned are more than the lighter skinned, but doesn't matter which age group. This one's by age, doesn't matter which age, race, demographic, male, female, all the charts show the same slope. More vitamin D, the lower the curve goes. Okay, it's a magnificent paper. I hope you guys appreciate what I'm showing you here. So the argument that I'm putting forward is that if the government and if our health officials told everybody that they should be increasing their daily dose of vitamin D to 4,000 international units per day, then we could radically decrease hospitalizations in this country so that we don't have to close the economy. And that to me seems like a very simple solution to a very massive problem. And listen, I have very limited reach. Very limited reach. I mean, my reach is not that long, okay? So surely somebody up there, I'm not talking about God, I'm talking about the government, somebody out there must know this information. And that leads me to be very suspicious and to ask why.
All right, Doc, we're still talking about a vaccine, still waiting, but a modifiable risk factor of COVID. We're talking about vitamin D. What is this about?
Vitamin D and low levels. And here's the latest study published, came out of Spain. It was a small study, but they looked at COVID-19 patients admitted to a hospital. They found that over 80% of them had deficient or low levels of vitamin D3.
It's day 108 of the coronavirus pandemic in America. And a new study out of the UK is proposing an interesting question. Could people with low levels of vitamin D be more likely to die from coronavirus? You're about to hear a leading physician on the topic. But first, here's the latest. People with low levels of vitamin D may be more likely to die from coronavirus, according to a study by England's Queen Elizabeth Hospital Foundation Trust and the University of East Anglia. Researchers compared the average vitamin D levels of 20 European countries with COVID-19 mortality rates and found significant relationships between vitamin D levels and the number of deaths caused by this infection. This news is causing concern because many Americans are believed to be deficient in vitamin D.
More research showing that vitamin D, which your body gets from the sun, can help fight COVID-19.
Vitamin D is key for maintaining healthy bones. Not having enough can affect your immune system and inflammation. Now, new research from Northwestern University shows patients with severe vitamin D deficiency are more likely to experience serious complications of COVID-19 and higher death rates.
Several groups we have identified which have high risk of mortality from COVID-19, such as African Americans or the elderly. Most of them do have very low levels of vitamin D.
So I'm not sure how much more information we need to put together for you. I'm not sure how many more articles, how many interviews, how many more doctors, how many more studies, how many more university studies, how many more Dr. Fauci's. We have the University Hospital Marquez de Valdecilla, Morehouse School of Medicine, Grady Hospital, Atlanta, Northwestern University in Illinois, University of Alberta, University of Chicago, England's Queen Elizabeth Hospital. How many more do we need? It should be pretty clear by now. And you know what? This isn't just new information. This has been going on since spring. I gave you stuff there from April, going into June, July, all the way up until the fall. So it doesn't make sense how I, as a regular citizen with my limited YouTube reach, could come up with a suggestion that seems to be better than what the government is doing right now. That could save thousands and thousands of jobs. There are other people like me. I guess, right? They're out there. Clearly they are, because I just showed you a whole bunch of them who are MDs and everything. So you got to really ask, why isn't this being done? And I'm not trying to get on some conspiracy stuff, but it's just, these are regular questions, right? This is really simple stuff that people should understand. And the fact that none of our health advisors health ministers are not saying this, very, 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 very strange. So are you starting to make a connection now as to why males seem to be more affected than females? Because biologically, males have less vitamin D. Why African Americans or people of color, just people with darker skin really, seem to be more affected because they don't produce as much vitamin D. See that whether it's disproportionate there. Does it make more sense now why it goes down in the summer when it's hot outside? The cases go way, way down. Remember we were seeing 100 cases a day or something in the summer because there's more vitamin D. Does it make sense now why all of the tropical places are not seeing such big spikes because of the vitamin D? Does that make sense? How it's not a vitamin, it's actually a hormone? Makes perfect sense to me. So you know what, honestly, I hope the Premier gets wind of this. I hope one of you can reach him. But in case you don't, do me a favor. Just check this out on your own. I've already done that for you. But check it out on your own more if you want to. And I would suggest you do it. Do it yourself. Get your family to do it. And everybody that you know, your friends and family, if you get them taking vitamin D, you can make a difference. If you have time and you want to, write a letter to your MP and, tell them about this and bring it to their attention. Get them to bring it to the attention of Doug Ford. You know what? If everybody can actually try to bring this to the attention of Doug Ford, that would be great. But I'm not going to be holding my breath, okay? So, a few housekeeping announcements. By the way, The first person who likes and comments on this video will get a free $10 gift certificate to either Starbucks or Tim Hortons, or you can just take the cash. I'll e-transfer it to you, okay? First person to like and comment wins that every single week. The main takeaway message from this video is that vitamin D doesn't only decrease hospitalizations and deaths from COVID-19, but it also decreases positivity rates, less positive cases. It also decreases other comorbidities. It also decreases other reasons why people go to the hospitals. That's how easy this is, people. Sometimes the most easy thing is the answer. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't make it complicated. We already have it complicated enough. We have to work hard, get a vaccine, which is almost here, by the way, which is great news. We'll talk about the vaccines on another episode. But the vaccine is one thing, but until then, we still have a long stretch. We still have a lot of people who could go bankrupt. We still have a long road until we get those vaccinations out to the whole public. We still have a lot of people who can go broke. We still have a lot of people who will lose their jobs. We still have a lot of people who are going to lose their businesses. We still have a lot of people who are going to lose their houses because they put their houses up as collateral for the business, and people who lose their jobs will also lose their houses. We still have a lot of pain that's going to be coming to the economy. That's all needless if we just took our vitamin D. Okay? So I want you to take that message home to mama and shove it in the oven. Okay? To mama, to papa, to grandma, to grandpa, and start popping those vitamin Ds like drugs, damn it. Okay, now I've said too much. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something. And I will see you next Thursday, 8 p.m. sharp. Peace.